You're hanging out with the crew of Dímelo 305, and we are at the beautiful Divieto here in Doral with none other than Vladimir Gomez. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming through and hanging out with us.
No, always. I love Dímelo 305 because they're always doing amazing content and keeping our informed community of the most important, relevant topics.
Thank you, brother. But you had beginnings. You know, we want to know your Miami story. Where are you from, and how did Vladimir start?
Well, I came from Cuba when I was 8 years old.
8? Okay, so you're a little older. Okay.
Yeah, I was 8. I decided to come to the States because my grandfather, nos reclamó. He pretty much put the money for us to come to the country and start my journey as an American.
¿Y cómo fue eso?
It was a rough beginning because I remember coming to Homestead, Florida. It wasn't even Miami. I came directly to Homestead, Florida.
Okay.
So I was surrounded by African Americans and Mexicans. I recall very well. It was a great experience. But at the beginning it was very tough because I was like, okay, how do I learn the language? How do I, communicate with my other fellow peers in my classroom? And how do I feel like welcome to the United States? So I remember watching a lot of television, listening to stories online, and that's how I was able to learn the language.
¿Y cómo fue el cambio de Homestead a Hialeah? ¿Cómo fue eso?
It was very drastic too because in Hialeah everything was Spanish. In Homestead everything was in English. Dual. I had some Spanish classes and I had Spanish communication with certain of my friends, pero fue una experiencia extremadamente difícil porque era cambiar de tener el cubaneo, literal. I had to speak the language, con my Cuban language and my Spanglish English, and then leaving the English. It was kind of like a challenge.
¿Y cómo
and
era
changing
Vladimir?
My friends and changing their personality was just like weird.
¿Y cómo era Vladimir de niño? ¿Era alegre? ¿Era contento?
Yo era un niño
jodedor?
Súper tal. Era muy calmado, pero a la misma vez travieso. Era muy emocional. Me encantaba llorar, me encantaba reírme, me encantaba gozarme todo lo que estaba viviendo como niño. Era un niño audaz. I was very intelligent and I was very savvy. I loved to learn. So I was very eager to get into entertainment.
14 years old, you started in the business.
Yeah.
¿Y cuál fue el primer lugar que te metiste?
Well, believe it or not, my godparents are Gloria and Emilio Estefan.
Oh,
a lot of people don't know this story behind
Okay.
me, but they were the ones who found me. They were the ones who gave me the first steps in the entertainment business. They were the ones to guide me.
¿Y cómo te encontraron?
Because my grandmother, vuelvo y repito, my grandmother used to make dulces in Hialeah, in a factory in Hialeah. And it's to this day, it's called Cruz Bakery. I'm not giving a plug, but hey, shout outs to them. Because that's how I got started. They were the first sponsors to ever help me get, some sort of money so I could be able to buy makeup, outfits, and things like that so I could go to castings. My grandmother finds out about an opportunity of a casting on Telemundo because she used to go drop out dulces in Telemundo all the time. So she's like, hey, va a haber un casting, why don't you try out? And I remember that I had a little bit of money, so I was like, hey, I was working in the dulceria, just helping out my family and stuff like that. And I was like, with that little money, I bought my first makeup, I bought my first things, and I was like, okay, this is a good thing. I'm gonna go to the casting. And I remember going to the casting, 14 years old, and dressing up as a geisha. I literally put makeup, el polvo blanco, literal, and I had red cheeks and red lipstick, and I looked like a geisha. And I went to the Telemundo casting looking like a geisha. Openly gay, because I've always been gay, but I was like, oh my God, I look back to those yeah, I'm gay. Yeah. Well, now I like girls at some point in my life. I don't want to.
That's a different interview. So you're in this world of TV for a while, right? We could say decades at this point. At what point did you realize you wanted to be a publicist? Because you're not the average publicist. I think when we think of Dímelo, we're not your average production company. We're a brand, and we're kind of in the artist space.
Different, outside the box.
With you, very similar. That you're not. When I think of a publicist, I think of someone else. You are your own artist. You are your own. Again, you're sensational in these spaces. At what point did you kind of mesh the two together? Because that's kind of unheard of.
Okay, so the challenge comes that I was assigned to a project with Sony Music Latin through Emilio Estefan and Gloria. They were doing a tour, right? So Frecuencia, which it was a hosted show that I also did with Gloria Aura for Estefan Television, that air on Telemundo on the weekends. It was kind of like the competition of Control back then, which was kind of like a music countdown show that Billboard sponsored. So we had the 10 music videos of the week for Billboard.
Like MTV, TRL,
Correct.
right? In Spanish.
Just like that, but in Spanish.
Yeah, in Spanish.
And it was hosted by Gloria Aura, which was very prominent. It was kind of like the Belinda of the time, and myself. And we used to travel everywhere with the Stefans to be able to capture content that would be exclusively for the music world. And I remember that I started interviewing a lot of this, reggaeton artists, doing exclusive with like all the genres, music, Latin, whatever, Latinos, music, or whatever. And they were like, Emilio was like, Vladdy, I see a lot of potential in your personality to do things as a publicist. And I was like, ¿tú crees, padrino? And he's like, yeah, of course, I see it. Tú tienes la personalidad, tú tienes las ganas de comerte el mundo, so ¿por qué no? Explóralo.
Can't talk with you without talking about controversy.
Yes.
So we have Vladimir the person.
Yes.
And we also have Vladimir the personality. Are those two different people?
Two different people. Vladimir Gomez is the one that it's like out there, who doesn't give a crap about nothing, who says what he wants to say, who is very controversial, and it's intenso, agudo, and very hyper. But Vladimir is the one talking to you right now. Mm-hmm. It's like the one that it's more concentrado, the one that's more focused, the one that's into the business.
Yeah.
The one that knows how to do publicity and shift the energy into a Vladi and then make a controversy. Along my career, I have made 27 controversies. The most.
You've counted them?
Yes, okay. I've counted them.
Was this something that you planned out, or how did you come to do this?
Okay, I get an artist, which she was very talked about in a negative way. So when I meet Yailin La Más Viral, they call me out, like they call me into the project. I didn't want to accept the project at the beginning because I was like, oh, I'm going to have a controversy now with Anuel. I don't want to get into drama with Anuel AA. He's one of my really good friends. So I didn't want to get into...
artists in the world.
Correct. Trap artists, like urbano, trap, like, and hip hop. Y yo dije, yo no me puedo meter en una controversia con Anuel. I have a friendship with Anuel. I know Anuel since the whole beginning of the relationship with Karol G, which I was the one to desatar el escándalo de la relación. I was the one to break that barrier. I was the one to publicly ask Anuel, coming out of jail, Anuel, ¿con quién de las artistas hispanas te gustaría colaborar? And he never mentioned Karol G. I came to mention Karol G in the middle of the press conference, him coming out of una cárcel federal. And I remember confronting him about it. And he mentioned Anita, he mentioned Nati Natasha, he mentioned other female artists which were not currently #1 on the ranks of Billboard during that time. And I mentioned Karol G and I said, ¿y por qué no Karol G, la artista internacional que está ahora mismo rankeada #1 en las posiciones musicales? And he looked at me, he goes, bueno, Karol G no, yo no he dicho nada, esto y lo otro. From a month into that, Culpables Tour's relationship started. Culpables Tour was announced, the relationship started, they started dating, and Karol, during the interview of Culpables Tour, me da la razón. She goes, gracias a ti tengo esta relación hoy. Mm-hmm. So a whole controversy started with that. But I was there since the beginning of the inception of the relationship, Karol y Anuel. So when they speak to me about Yailin La Más Viral, which is a colleague of mine that works for G2 Music in New York, which we used to work at SBS together, she calls me and she gives me the offer of the job. And I was like, yo no estoy seguro sobre esto. But she goes, tú eres la persona que sabe lidiar con las controversias más grandes. Tú has hecho mucho escándalo en la industria hispana. Why don't you focus on them? And I was like, sounds interesting, maybe. I'll think about it. 2 days into that, I called her. Because I, consulté con mis colegas en la industria and they were like, Vladdy, I don't think you should have an issue. Go work with Yailin. So I was like, cool. I started working with her. I accept the challenge. I go to the Dominican Republic to meet her. One night she called me very excited. She was like screaming, histéricamente feliz. She's like, wow, tengo tremendo publicista. Ya he visto el research de quién tú eres. No lo puedo creer que tú vas a llevar mi carrera. Like, estoy super excited, blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, Vladdy, I can't believe you're joining my team. And I was like, I am. I'm going to the Dominican Republic tomorrow. Te voy a conocer en persona. So I know the true story behind everything. Porque yo me instruyo mucho. Yo soy como una enciclopedia, como una biblia del entretenimiento. I know things from the past to now to the present to the future. Muchas las veces he dicho cosas que han pasado, which is so odd, but it happens. And I was like, ¿cómo voy a lidiar con esta situación? So my first attack, dealing with Jailin, as soon as I landed, was let me call every single executive producer in this industry and let them know that I have Jailin La Más Viral. That was the first move I did. I put myself as the publicist and as the frontier face for this, and also as a co-manager, because she has no management. So I had to be the face of everything. I had to deal with Jailin, her madness, her things, her dad, her family, her kid, esto, lo otro. So I was helping a lot. And I took on a lot of responsibilities because we're not part of my job. I got hired as a publicist and I ended up being a co-manager. Pero bueno, I took the challenge. I wasn't ready for a relationship with Tekashi. That wasn't okay with that. So when that happened, I try to separate things. I try to tell the media it's not happening. The relationship is not happening. I went against a lot of adversities. Tekashi wasn't invited to any of the award shows. He couldn't step into the award shows because he had vetoes in some of the networks. But I had an artist which everybody wanted. So I had la controversia of dealing with the Spanish networks, which are my colleagues and my friends for a very long time. I'm talking about presidents of the networks, which are my best friends. And I had to deal with that, you know, no podemos tener a la pareja junta, tráeme a Jailin sola. And I was like, Jailin no quiere ir si no va con él. So it was like drama. And she didn't want to do it. 5 minutes before the interview, she's like llorando en un panic attack que me le entró, and she was like atacada and crying, and I was like, how do I deal with this? Like, I still have to deal with this. I still have to come through the interview. So I told her my plan. I tell her, look, yo tengo toda la prensa dominicana, la de tu país, la internacional la vamos a dejar para los ensayos, pero la prensa dominicana yo te la voy a poner a ti delante de la entrevista de la Mega. Tú no vas a decirle una palabra a la prensa. Yo lo único que quiero es que tú seas polite y seas una persona amable y saludes a esa prensa. Y le diga hola, ¿cómo están? O whatever, lo que te salga del corazón decirle. Fuera de ahí no te van a hacer preguntas porque yo voy a evadir las preguntas. I'm going to make sure that nobody asks you a question. Inappropriate. She goes, okay, yo confío, Vladi. Pues vamos para la entrevista. So we get to the interview. She had fun. She was laughing. She was being herself, like genuinely, like open. Like ella dijo cosas que I wasn't even on the libreto that I had prepararle para ella. ¿Me entiendes? So she felt very comfortable. Entonces me tomé 2 tequila shots. So yo estaba sueltico. And I was like, to enfrentar ese challenge, I had to have something in my system because I couldn't be normal. Literal. No cualquier persona normal puede hacer lo que yo hice. Y entonces, as I'm listening to the questionings, I was like, es mi momento. Yo tengo que parar esto o esto va a ser un caos total en estos periodistas y van a salir todos los headlines que no quiero que salgan públicamente. And then Jailin looks at me and she goes, Manin, gracias. And I was like, tranquila, I got you. We got each other. We're here for this. And we're going to make this happen.
You're a person who is super talented, and I'm so happy that we're seeing this side of you, which is a side that we don't see often. You have to let us know what is next in your career. You're still young. You're doing a lot of cool things. I feel like you're just getting started in many ways. What is next for Vladi?
Well, honestly, the next step for my own personal growth would be to continue working on my podcast. I want to get into television again. I want to go back to radio because I believe that that's my route. But at the end of everything, I'm focusing right now on becoming a politician.
Okay.
Very interesting, and it sounds very odd, but I have a feeling that by the end of, I don't know, 2026, 2027, or something like that, I'll be a politician. I'll be a person that will be in politics, serving my community.
Here locally in Miami?
Yeah, I want to start locally.
Okay.
I want to start in Opalaca, actually.
Opalaca, okay.
Yeah, I want to start in Opalaca because it's growing.
He lives in Opalaca over there.
Yeah, it's a growing community. It's amazing what's happening in Opalaca. There's a lot of investment being happening over there. And if I could become mayor or a councilman to start, bajito. And
Mayor,
from there,
bajito?
Yeah, well, something. I mean, I want a nice chair. I deserve it, And I'm gonna do a great candidatura for that. But eventually that to happen, and then continue growing and become a congressman and get to the Congress or a senator and representar kind of like what Maria Elvira's done, or any of our big politicians. You know, I do want to get to Tallahassee, but I see politics in my field. I don't know why. And everything politics-wise is like following me, me está buscando, which is so weird. But I have a lot of friends and colleagues which are in the business, and they're like, Vladimir, you're perfect for this because you have a background in television and radio, you know the ins and outs of the media, so, and you create scandals just by going on a live. So why don't you do it for the politics side? And I was like, oh, sounds interesting. So I'm being scouted por ahí.
Well, Lottie, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me open myself up to my reality and seeing it from a whole different perspective. I don't tend to do interviews like this. I'm always on the controversy side and like, gritando and being wild. But I'm very happy that Dímelo 305 got to that soft side of me and I was able to open up the way I did.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.